Amazing. We are live. Very much live. This is so exciting. Hi, Adelis. Hi, Sira. Hi, Praveen. Come say hi in the chat. Come say hi in the chat. Very exciting. Hello, hello. All right. What are you excited for? Tell me what you're excited for in the chat. Let me know. Let me know. I see a lot of people typing. That's very good. Oh, good. What are you excited to learn, Adelis? What are you excited to learn? All right. So today we are going to talk about conversation enders. How do you exit a conversation smoothly and confidently and know how to do that without, saying the wrong thing or being insecure about it? We want to do this in a confident, clear way. And last week, we talked about conversation starters. How do you initiate a conversation? How do you, initially start a conversation? What do you do? And, we had a great session. So I highly recommend you watch the replay if you did not get a chance to watch it. So let's dive in. How about that? I see. Oh, hi, Mireya. So happy to see you here. And definitely leverage the chat. That's what it's there for. So I highly recommend you ask questions, engage with the material, put your comments in, and let's make use of it, because that's what it's there for. And I check the messages, and as things come up, I will address them. But I don't want to break the flow of our webinar. So if there's a question that's not relevant to what we're discussing at the time, then I might save it for the end. So don't feel like I'm not going to get to you. It just might not be the right moment in the where we are in the webinar. Does that make sense? Do you want to give me your favorite emoji in the chat? Give me your favorite emoji if all of that makes sense. All right. Let's see your favorite emojis. Emojis are great, right? We don't have to explain things too much with emojis. It's kind of self-evident. I like it. All right. Thumbs up from Sira. Dancing lady from Praveen. Great. Excellent. What else do you have for us? Thumbs up from Mireya. Excellent. All right. So I hope everyone is having a great Monday, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is for you, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening. We have an international community. So we have people from all over the world joining, which personally is one of my favorite things about our incredible community. If you couldn't tell how much I love our community already. So I'm going to go ahead and guess what I'm going to do? Share my screen, right? We will get started. Okay. Very exciting. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about how to end a conversation, right? Has this been something that you've struggled with in the past? Are you nodding your head right now and saying, oh yeah, that's definitely something that I need to know how to do? Who's nodding their head right now? Who's nodding their head and saying, yeah, absolutely. This is something that I really, really need. Starting and ending conversations can be tricky, right? They can be tricky. And it's not like this is taught in school. Even native English speakers have a hard time with this. So, we have native English speakers in our community, and they're here to learn communication skills and social skills and executive communication, because that's what we teach. We teach communication in this community, right? This is not an English learning community. You learn English through what we do, but that's why, we teach communication. And that's why we have people who are in this community who are interested in increasing their social fluency, working on their executive communication and presence, working on social emotional intelligence skills and communication skills, right? And we use English as the medium of teaching and conversation. So that's what we do here. For those of you who are new, or maybe you weren't sure exactly. So we're talking about how to wrap up discussions smoothly, exit conversations with confidence and grace, and kind of, not worry about being stuck in an awkward conversation, because you know how to get out. If it's awkward or it's uncomfortable, or you have to be somewhere else, you've got places to be, people to see, you know how to get out of that conversation, right? I think we've all been there. We've been in those conversations where we're like, I don't want to be in this conversation anymore. I need an exit. Give me that exit. So I'm here to help you with that exit in this webinar. And again, I want to reiterate, last week we talked about conversation starters. So if you missed it or you want a refresher, by all means, check that out. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm MD. I would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat too. That would be fabulous. I want to welcome you again. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Exploring and Advanced English, and I am head of community in our community, Exploring Academy. So that's a little bit about me. I'm here to empower you and equip you with the tools to, increase your social fluency, know how to talk to anyone about anything in any social setting, be it in work settings, in personal settings, in casual settings, in any type of communication setting, because we are communicating all day, every day. And I'm here to give you those confidence boosting and communication techniques to do that. That's what I love to do. And for those of you who like to listen to our Spotify podcast, and wherever else you listen to your podcast too, and Apple and everything else, and YouTube, I would love for you to subscribe to those channels, follow the podcast, and share it with friends. That's how, we spread the word through the good content that we create, but also through word of mouth. So if you are enjoying it and you want your friends to participate also in this community, why not? Let them know. Tell them about it. The more, the merrier, right? All right. Elisa is here and she says, hi from Italy. Very exciting. Very exciting. Welcome. So I've got an advanced master's from Columbia University. That's my second master's. I have my other master's in TESOL and teaching English to adults and of all ages, Bashir University. And I've got my undergrad in French and communication. I was a double major, and that's from Hamilton College. So, I've been doing this for over 15 years. I love what I do. I truly believe that communication is really the essence of what humans are capable of, right? Like, we need to be able to connect socially. We are social creatures. We need to know how to do it with confidence and grace and poise, and our humanity unites us, right? We're from all over the world, but we're able to understand each other through that communication and the social interaction that we have. And I'm here to help you with that. I've got over a decade now, it's about 15 years in cross-cultural corporate communications, television, live broadcasting, education. I've been teaching and designing courses in communication, social skills, public speaking, English, cross-cultural, and business communication for 15 plus years. And my research is an emphasis of technology, leveraging technology, empirical research, and data-backed teaching methodologies for high-value student outcomes. I also train teachers. I teach teachers how to teach. I've done teacher training at Columbia University in New York City, Baruch College in New York, Hunter College in New York, and then abroad. So you know, this is something that I love to do, and I'm so happy to be able to do this in the community and have you all here with me, right, along for the journey. Some reminders. I want you to leverage the interactive chat. Okay, that's a great tool that we have there at our disposal. So please use it. The advantages of doing these live is that you get to have that. So please, by all means, interact. I would silence your notifications because for the next, for the duration of this webinar, I would love for you to be engaged and distraction free. And then I would love for you to ask questions during the Q&A portion that follows this presentation. But you can also ask during, and I will get to them if they make sense to answer at that moment, depending on what slide we have. I will answer it there. If not, I'll answer it at the end. Okay. So that's just a little bit of what we're going to do. So we're going to talk about how to recognize natural endpoints. What are some verbal strategies? What are some nonverbal strategies? How to practice a graceful exit, tips for graceful conversation endings, and then we'll look at some examples so that you can familiarize yourself with that a little bit more, right? Okay, so let's start with techniques for ending discussions smoothly. So we've got utilize well, first of all, how do we know when there's a natural endpoint, right? Sometimes it'll be obvious. And, you know, you might want to utilize a natural pause. So you find that it's culminated to whatever, you know, however you kind of end the topic that you're discussing or the conversation at hand. And you'll notice a kind of little bit of lull, right? There's like a pause that happens. So you can actually leverage this by utilizing that pause to then segue into an exit. You can wind up the conversation when the topic has reached a logical conclusion where you've exhausted, you know, the possibilities of what you've discussed, right? You've kind of covered most of the territory, if not all of the territory, and you feel comfortable wrapping things up. Then we've got, right? So we've got the pause, the completion of a topic. Then we've got understanding the cue points. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into what this means exactly. There are verbal cues. Okay, so thinking of, you know, words or phrases that hint at the conversation coming to a close, like in conclusion, if it's a more formal kind of thing, or yeah, so yeah, you know, to wrap up. So that's it, right? You kind of like wrap it up a little bit, and there's ways of doing that in a very casual way, such as using these kinds of tags, in conclusion, in summary, to wrap up. So yeah, that's basically it, things like that. And then we've got nonverbal cues. Okay, so these are the things that you would do with your gestures, right? We've got the actual words that we can speak, which was the verbal cues portion. And then we've got recognizing physical signs that indicate the conversation may be winding down, right? So we talked about that pause, that lull in a conversation, like there's no one really adding anything more. You might be checking the time, you might be looking at your watch, maybe you get distracted with your phone and you pull your phone out. Things like that, where you're starting to show with your body language, all right, let's wrap this up, right? Okay. Then there are environmental cues, which you basically, for this, you're paying attention to the environment, changes in the environment, right? Like an event might end. You might be, you know, you're chatting with people on a line, and then your turn comes up and you're ready to order your coffee. You're going to leave that conversation, right? Maybe there was a long line and people are really busy at the coffee shop, so you couldn't place your order, so you started chit-chatting with the people in the line with you. But when your turn's up, and you know, you leave the conversation with the people that you're talking to. So this is what we mean by environmental cues, pointing to things, the changes that are happening in your environment. Maybe you're waiting for the bus and your bus shows up, whatever it might be. right? People starting to leave. Okay. So how are we doing so far with those understanding the natural endpoints, the cues? What do we feel about that? Let me know in the chat. What are your thoughts? And then we'll move on to verbal strategies. All right, let's see. Anything at all? Clear. Okay, very clear. Thank you, Medea. I'm glad that it's clear. All right, let's move on then. So we've got verbal strategies. Summarization. So it's what it sounds like to sum up, right? So to sum up our discussion, to sum up the key points, to provide a summary, in summary, things like that, it sounds like we covered XYZ. Or even saying something like, wow, we covered a lot of territory. We covered a lot of ground. Things like that shows that you're summarizing, right? And what do we do? Why do we summarize? We summarize at the end, right? When we want to make things very clear for not just ourselves to make sure we got all those points, but also for the people who are in the conversation as well, right? Listening. So this is great. This is great. You can definitely use these to start to signal, okay, this is the end of the conversation. Okay. Then we've got closing statements, which are, I really enjoyed our conversation about fishing. I learned so much. This was so enlightening. Now I know what types of fishing rods to get, the type of bait that I need, what are the good spots in my area to go fishing, and so on and so forth. It was really great catching up with you on whatever the topic is, right? So you see, they're subtle ways, but they're very clear if you're paying attention to what's going on. And then you as the listener are like, oh, okay, so this person wants to wrap up. And you know what? That makes sense. Let's wrap up. We've exhausted our topics. We can always pick up this conversation next time. You can even say something like, yeah, it was great catching up. I'm so excited to pick this conversation back up when we meet each other again. Or happy to dive deeper into this topic if you would like at our next rendezvous, at our next meeting, right? So it's never really the end, right? But, you can always find ways of delving deeper into a topic. Just because you exit that conversation and you've exhausted the possibilities of whatever you're talking about in that specific moment, who's to say that there's not more to talk about at another time? So that's always available to you, right? Just keep that in mind. Then we've got transition phrases. So before I go, I just wanted to say ... Before we wrap up, I really have to get this off my chest ... I'll let you go now, but let's blah, 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 right? That's a great one that Americans really like to use. We like to say, like, I'll let you go. Like, I've been holding you up too much, right? It's like, actually, you also want to go too because you have stuff to do, but you blame it on kind of like, oh, I don't want to inconvenience you any further. Like, let's wrap this up. Not what we really mean, though, oftentimes is like, I need to go. I have to go. But we can't say that. That's too direct. That's on the cusp of being rude. So we wouldn't say that. We would say, I'll let you go now, but let's definitely revisit this topic again. I had a great time talking about it. Gratitude and farewell. This would be something like, thank you for the insightful conversation. Thank you so much for shedding your wisdom on this topic, for shedding light on this topic, whatever you're talking about. It could also be something like, I really appreciate our time chatting. I always have a great time with you, right? When you say stuff like that, it signals that, okay, this is the end of the conversation for now because they're thanking me, right? And I'm thanking them. And we're expressing our gratitude for having a great conversation. It could be even something like, I always have a great time talking with you. I always enjoy our chats, right? When you say something like that, it's clear that the conversation is wrapping up, right? And it makes sense. Okay, great. So we've got nonverbal strategies now. So again, this is more about body language, paralinguistics, gestures, things like that, that you would do in addition to voicing something, verbalizing something. Okay. Facial expressions, right? Some of us are very expressive with our faces. I certainly am. If you are expressive, then you can definitely leverage this. If you're not, but you can work towards it, right? If that's something that you want to incorporate in your communication, why not experiment with it? I'm always about experimentation because that's how you really know, what feels good when you're expressing yourself, what kind of style you want, and things like that. Because we all have our own communication styles, of course. So having that friendly smile, and you want to indicate and radiate positivity. Subtle nods to acknowledge that you're wrapping up, right? You're kind of like, they're subtle, but they're expressive, right? We're wrapping up here. So those are some facial expressions. Then we've got, for gestures, closing a notebook, putting the cap on your water bottle, clearly showing that you finished your tea, right? Maybe motioning to get up, capping a pen, right? Things like that, or just kind of like organizing your desk space, organizing, the area that you were sitting at for your board meeting. Things like that start to show, okay, wrapping up, right? Things are happening. We're setting things in motion. So that's certainly one of the things you can use there for gestures. It might even be initiating a handshake, so putting your hand out when you're face to face. It could even be like waving, like I said, getting up if you're seated. If you're in a public space, maybe even saying, do you know where the restroom is? Things like that, right? Where that was also verbal, but if you get up and do it, that can be motioning towards, okay, we're wrapping things up. Signaling time constraints. This one's a really great one too, because it's so subtle. And people pick up on it, but of course you should also be attuned to that. So here you're not only learning what you can do to exit a conversation, but you're also learning what someone else might do when they want to signal that, right? So you're learning these things too, because we have to be receptive to what's going on when we're also in the position where someone is trying to wrap up a conversation, right? Let's say they initiate the wrap up. So it would be something like checking your watch subtly. Some people do this in a very overt way. So they'll, roll up their sleeve and be like, oh my goodness, look at the time, right? It's like very obvious, but you probably wouldn't want to be that obvious. It could be coming across as a little bit rude, like, oh, I didn't know I was taking up so much time. Sorry, right? So it might be something more like this right here. I'll get up so you can kind of see, be like, oh, right? Like that, right? You don't even have to say anything, but you'd be like, oh, right? You're kind of like raising your eyebrows, looking at your watch subtly. Or if there's like a clock in the room, like you look that way, right? And you see the clock. Gradually standing up, gathering your belongings, or like, oh, I'm out of water. I really need to go because I'm so thirsty. I need to get some more water. Whatever that might be, right? You're signaling, and you can do that in a way that makes sense for you and your style. If you're known as somebody who consumes a lot of beverages throughout the day, right? You need your teacup, you need your water glass, you need to go get your refill. You might be at work and you're on your way to the water cooler, and somebody intercepts you and you start having a conversation, and then you notice that you finish your water, and you might say to that, you might like look at it and be like, oh, my water's full right now, so I don't want to dump it on my computer. But you might like look at it and be like, oh, right. Does that make sense? Right? You know how you're doing that with a kind of, there's a subtlety to it, but then you can also pair it with something verbal. Like, oh, look at that. I'm out of water. I should refill this. Practicing a graceful exit. Okay. So you want to maintain composure, right? You want to be as composed and calm as you can. Don't rush. We're all human. We make mistakes. That's okay. It's part of being human. If we were perfect, we would be other than human, robots, whatever it might be. I mean, robots are probably not perfect either, but you get the idea. So the point is, just be as calm and composed as you can. Don't rush. Don't say, oh, it's time to go, and then you get all frantic. A positive remark, right? Make something positive out of it. Even if you had a conversation where something was soured and, maybe you had a little bit of a disagreement, that's okay. That happens, but try to end on a positive note. Try to end on a high note. So leaves a better impression too, right? So they might not remember, the argument that you had 5 minutes ago, but they'll remember feeling good about wrapping up. Like it ended well. That's always better. And then making like a future mention, right? So like, I really look forward to catching up next week, or let's get something on the calendar next month. And really set a date, right? In American English, we have, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we often say, let's do coffee. Let's do coffee. And then we never do coffee. It's just kind of like an exit strategy. Let's do coffee. But if you're really sincere about doing coffee, then you should get something on the calendar with people, right? Don't set someone's hopes up and then never do coffee with them. But if you hear let's do coffee, that's like a wrap up. That's a future mention. So this is what we mean by open for future conversations, right? I look forward to catching up again. I can't wait to see you next week. I'm looking forward to our vacation together. I'll see you at next week's board meeting, so on and so forth. Or will I see you at trivia night? Whatever it is, it's a future mention. Let's continue this conversation sometime soon. Do you want to grab lunch? Let's talk then. Things like that. Okay. So when it comes to, gracefully and with poise and confidence, ending a conversation, here are some tips that I have for you. Try to be sincere, right? This is very important. That will come through. That's your authenticity. Genuine appreciation for the conversation goes a long way, right? People like it when you enjoyed the conversation as much as they did, and that you were able to build rapport and connect. This is nice. This is very important. This goes a long way. Be respectful, right? So respect the other person's time and give them space to respond, and just respect that they have other obligations too, right? They might need to get somewhere. They might be dying of thirst in the middle of the hallway. That's a hyperbole, but it's, to express that they really need to refill their water bottle, and, you've kept them there for 30 minutes and they were too polite to exit the conversation, right? So speaking of water, so it's things like that, right? We want to be receptive to their concerns too and needs. Practice. So I would really encourage you to try different strategies and find and do what feels most natural to you, right? Because remember, the goal here is to end the conversation on a positive note. You want to leave the door open for future conversations. You don't want to just have one conversation with this person and that's it. You want to have multiple conversations, right? You're building a relationship here. You're building rapport. You're creating connection through communication. So that's what we want to do. Okay, so keep those in mind. Now I'd like to get to the examples. How does that sound? So let's have a look here. These are little blurbs that I have for you so that you kind of see this in context, different contexts. So person A, that's how we managed to finish the project just in time. Wow, that sounds like quite an experience. I really enjoyed our conversation about your project strategies. Before I go, I just wanted to say your team's determination is really inspiring. Okay, so tons of exit strategies stuff going on in there, right? Sounds like a great experience, quite an experience. Before I go, I just wanted to say, and then you end on something nice. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Let's catch up again soon. Right. So that person picked up on that, smiling. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Take care. All right. So that's one of those. Let's see the next example. 2. Da-da-da-da-da. So that's the latest update from our community meeting. Checking watch subtly, right? Very subtle. Kind of like looking down, maybe roll up your sleeve a little bit. I really appreciate you keeping me in the loop. It sounds like the community is headed in a great direction. I'll let you go now. I'll let you go. I'm not keeping you. You're not keeping me. I'll let you go. But let's plan to meet up soon and discuss this in more detail. Because maybe you didn't get into all the nitty gritty details and you want to be able to do that. Just now's not the time because you need to go pick up your kids from school or somebody needs your attention. You got to take the dog out for a walk, or you need to go to your Pilates class, whatever it is. Definitely, I'd love to get your insights on it. Have a great day. Okay, you too. Goodbye. Okay, let's see example 3. That was the most memorable part of the vacation. So they talked about their vacation, had a nice conversation, and that was the most memorable part of the vacation. Your vacation sounds wonderful. And so gradually stands up, right? You don't want to shoot up because it's like, okay, I need to go somewhere, right? We talked about doing these things subtly and calmly and marking it with composure. So you gradually get up. Okay. Thank you for the insightful conversation. I have to head to an appointment now, but I would love to hear more about your travels next time. I have to head out to a meeting. I'm getting this phone call. I have to take this call, things like that. And hopefully they are true, because then somebody might catch you in your bluff. But if it's not true, then just be as subtle as you can about it. That's all I'll say. But then they'll say, absolutely, safe travels and take care. Offering a friendly wave. Thank you. Goodbye. Right? How are we doing so far with these examples? Thumbs up in the chat. What do we think? They provide some context so that you can see, and we're using both verbal and nonverbal because you want to mix the two together. That's when it's really powerful. You say something and you follow it up with an action, like looking at the clock, looking out the window, checking your phone, things like that, or checking your watch subtly. Again, the operative word is subtly, right? You want to do these things as subtle as possible. Okay. Example 4. So that's the recipe from my grandmother's favorite famous apple pie. I can almost taste it from your description. To sum up our chat, I definitely need to try making it sometime. Closes notebook. I have to wrap up now, but I hope you'll share more recipes with me in the future. Cool. And then they say, I'd be happy to. Take care and happy baking. Thanks. Goodbye. Okay. Example 5. Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And that's my perspective on the current market trends. I value your insight. It gives me a different perspective on the market dynamics. It was great catching up with you on this. Initiates handshake. So you put your hand out to the person, right? Extend it. I need to head out for a meeting now, but let's continue this conversation soon. Right? It's so simple. So simple in so many ways. Certainly. Looking forward to it. Bye. Take care. Right? So that's what I have for you. Yes, it comes with practice, but that comes with the territory, obviously. When we want to get good at something, we've got to practice it and practice it and practice it. And then we will feel more confident and more at ease doing it. And we will be better and get better at this. We hone our skills. So I would like to open the floor, so to speak, to Q&A. If you have your questions, please put them in the chat. This is the time to do that. And I'm happy to get to them. So I see some people chatting. And while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and show you some questions. I see Carolina chatting. So let's get Carolina's question. Not to put you on the spot, Carolina, but if you do have a question, feel free to ask it now. I want to give you some, here's some questions. So I I'm bringing some questions to you and we can go over those. But I do really encourage you to ask your questions, because that's one of the beautiful things about being participating in this live webinar. I'm here for you. We have found a time to meet in virtual space to do this, which is so cool. And I'm happy to answer your questions. Okay, so I'll let people chat, ask me in the chat. Let's answer this question. Can you give examples of subtle nonverbal cues that indicate someone is ready to end a conversation? So what are a few more of these kind of subtle cues? Okay, we've got closed body language. So body language is the first kind of bit. So you might cross your arms, cross your legs, right? That indicates that a person is starting to withdraw from the conversation. They're disengaging, just like open body language, open chat, right? How do you kind of lean in? Okay. Then we've got physical distance, right? So, when you lean away or you take a step back or you start, again, removing yourself from the conversation, that shows that you're getting ready to exit, right? Even facing the other way or even facing the door or the exit sign, that's showing you're signaling. Reduced eye contact, right? If somebody starts to make less eye contact, they're starting to look at their phone or their notebook or their teacup or something, that's starting to show that their attention is waning. So they're going to start to skedaddle. They're going to leave. Smile fade, right? When the smile starts to diminish. So they're smiling and then, now they're like lower energy and they're not smiling anymore. That could also be a smile fade. Checking the time. So these are gestures. Glancing at a watch or a clock, that can be a sign of impatience. Maybe they whip out their phone, they start to scroll through their notifications, check their email, respond, or say, oh, I'm getting a call. That could be it too. Fidgeting. They start fidgeting, doing something there. Excessive fidgeting when somebody's, indicating restlessness, and being kind of, ready to go on to the next thing. They're ready to wrap up. Looking towards the exit point. That's what we said. Gathering their belongings. Okay. And then in terms of engagement, nodding less, kind of withdrawing, shorter responses. So they're just being more concise and not getting into details, because when you get into details, you'll have follow-up questions and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's one of the questions. Carolina, firstly, respectful to the other people. Is this a question? I would love to answer it. I just don't exactly know what you are asking. So if you want to clarify, I would love for you to do that. So I'm happy to answer. Yeah, let me know if what you mean. Is it a question about this, or is it something else that we didn't cover but related to this? Feel free to elaborate. Okay, let's look at another one. How can I smoothly end a conversation if it is veered into uncomfortable or unwanted territory? So someone starts talking about something that you really don't want to talk about. Okay, Carolina says no about earlier general questions. Okay, something that we talked about, Carolina, in this. Let me know. I'm still unclear. I'm sorry. I don't really understand what you're asking. So yeah, please explain. Thank you. And I'm happy to get to it. So how do you exit a conversation that you don't want to be in because it's making you feel uncomfortable, or you just don't want to talk about that topic, or maybe somebody's asking too personal a question and you really don't want to get into it, which is completely your right? That's not something that you have to, oop, there's a mosquito. There's not something, you don't feel obliged to do that. So how do you do that? How do you address the issue directly, right? Politely acknowledge that it's uncomfortable for you and then you don't feel, that you should answer that. You don't want to answer that. Change the subject. You can redirect the conversation. So skillfully steer it in another way. I'm a big fan of this one because most of the time people don't even notice, to be honest, because things happen in general where, your attention gets grabbed by something else and you veer off from it. This happens naturally without even intending to sometimes. So you can redirect it into more neutral territory and, steer to a safer topic, whatever that is. Use a closing statement. It's been great catching up, but I really think I need to go now. I'm getting a call. I'm so happy we got to chat, but look at the time. Yep, I'm getting a call. Or I really need to take this. If there's a call. Nonverbal signals like getting up gradually, like we said. Seek an exit opportunity. So look for a natural pause in the conversation where it might lull, and take that as an opportunity for you to leave and say, I really need to go now. Or it was really great catching up. Oh my gosh, look at the clock. I can't believe we've sat here for 3 hours chatting. You can excuse yourself, right? You might just say that I have a prior commitment. I need to attend to something important. Something needs my attention. I'm sorry, I cannot stay and chat any further. Offer future engagement, right? Make a future mention. Say, that you really want to continue the conversation about the things that you were talking about, except for, you want to steer clear of that topic. So you might not necessarily voice that, but, you say, I would really love to chat more about playing tennis. I would love to hear your thoughts on best places to play tennis, or what your regimen is, or whatever it is, right? So you're saying what you do want to talk about, not necessarily about what you don't want to talk about, right? How does that sound? But really the key is to maintain respect and understanding, because don't take what, like the misinformation or the fact that they didn't catch that it was like a negative topic for you, or maybe even a taboo topic. Don't mistake it for, maliciousness. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt, even if it might feel like, they're talking about that topic because they know I don't want to talk about that. That's not always the case. That might be sometimes the case, but don't mistake that for maliciousness. So give them the benefit of the doubt, and, you can set those boundaries and say, I really don't want to get into that topic right now. I'm not comfortable talking about this. You can also be frank with somebody, and, be direct in that way, especially if that's your style. But you don't have to be. You can also use the other ways I mentioned here. Okay, Carolina, I thought about such a conclusion. When you describe verbal and nonverbal cues, it seems to be a general rule in communication. Yeah, I guess you could think of it that way. These are very subtle though, right? So are you talking about exit strategies in general? They could be. People do this sometimes without even knowing that they're doing it, right? Because they really might have to go and say, I really do have to go. So I'm looking at my clock. So I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but these are kind of, I wouldn't say rules, but they're definitely great tools to use in communication for sure. And that's a good observation in terms of effective communication. Yes, this is how you're going to be even more effective in communication for sure. For sure. So I think that's what you're picking up on, which is great. Excellent. Okay. Awesome. I love it. Smiley face. Well done. Good observation. All right. I wanted to add this one too. Are there certain strategies that you can use, like in a video call, that might be different from in-person face-to-face interactions? Believe it or not, when we do in the communication world, in the communication theory world, when we say a video call, when we talk about a video call, that's considered still face-to-face interaction, believe it or not. Yeah. But there is, when you're in person versus virtual. So you might, use the agenda and say, oh, we're at the last point, our last item on our agenda, or our final point here, right? So using that as a natural endpoint. Maybe you can also talk about this time management. So as you wrap up, you say, okay, well, our meeting is drawing to a close. We're almost out of time. We have a couple more minutes. Reminding people of that. That could be good. Visual cues, right? It could be harder to pick up on nonverbal cues in the virtual setting, but you can still observe visual cues. When, let's say you see participants start to lose focus, maybe they're frequently checking their time. If you see everybody in the call together, you might utilize the chat function, right? You see that you can use the chat function of the hi. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Let me know how to pronounce it in the chat. But Avihai says, yes, I think we know this very well during the COVID period. Absolutely, right? We definitely all learned how to do virtual communication and interaction more and maybe even better, hopefully, right? Good point. Using closing phrases like before we wrap up, before we end, before we, we shut off our computers or whatever it is. Technological signals. So turning off a screen share or closing a presentation or closing out your tabs or something where it's like visual and they can see that. Suggesting a follow-up, right? So, saying like, can't wait to continue this conversation another time. And that's the end. Thanking the participants, gracefully exiting. Just say that you have another commitment or you have to run to another meeting. Doing a feedback and recap. That could be a great strategy. And speaking of recap, we talked about recognizing natural endpoints, those cues. Those are important cues that we have to be receptive to as listeners, but also know how to put them out as speakers or whomever is initiating the end of the conversation. Verbal strategies, nonverbal strategies that you want to use in tandem, practicing a graceful exit, tips for conversation endings that are done with grace and poise, example, so you can see them, those 5 examples that I would love for you to revisit in the replay, where you got to see the environment in which these can come up. And then we did a little Q&A FAQ. So you might be thinking, how can I improve my skills in recognizing natural endpoints in a conversation? Yes. Very good question, isn't it? Very good question. It takes practice, right? And that's why I want to invite you to our video call workshop. So that's where everyone will be on. You'll have all of our faces there in the call. And yes, we also have a chat in addition to that, but you have everybody's face there and you can speak and hear, and we're face to face in the virtual sense. Live video call workshop. You can connect with others, establish conversation partners, because you're getting to know people, and then you might jive well with somebody and have that instant rapport, that instant connection. You might say, hey, you want to continue this conversation? Let's do that. And you can do that in our community. We have the ability in certain spaces where you can actually set up your own meeting and people in your time zone can come in and hang out. And it's great, really fun. Immediate feedback. When you join our calls, you get feedback from me, from other participants, from our members, right? And it's great because you need to have that feedback to know if you're doing something right or how it's being perceived, what it sounds like, because you might say something and it might sound completely different to you. And I'm not talking about accent or pronunciation. I'm saying like how you said something. How does it sound to the other person? How did you intend for it to sound? Right? This is something that transcends language. This is the nuance, right? The nuance, the social fabric that really creates what we talk about in terms of social fluency, like the social savviness, being able to navigate social interaction. And you get risk-free practice, right? Because no one is going to judge you. We're all in the, lifelong learner, I'm here to learn and grow mindset. If we make mistakes, that's okay. We grow from our mistakes. We encourage mistakes because we grow from them, and they show us that we're stepping outside of our comfort zone. So mistakes are good. and we have fun. We have so much fun. It's really lovely. So you'll enhance your skills, you'll network, you'll build your confidence, and it'll be an enjoyable experience. So I'm inviting you to join our live video call. Again, that's with everybody who joins this call. You'll have everybody in the call and you get to see everybody in that session. It's Thursday, September 21st. Put it on your calendars. It's going to be at 12 noon Eastern time. So around the same time that we started this webinar, we will start that video call workshop. So I do hope that you come, because that way you can practice all the things that we chatted about here. It's one thing for me to give you all the strategies. I can give you thousands of strategies. In fact, that's what I do on my YouTube channel. We have hundreds of lessons on there on both Advanced English and Exploring Academy, Exploring Communication. Advanced English for Professionals and Exploring Communication. At this point, it's over hundreds of lessons. So there are thousands of strategies in those. But if you're not practicing them and you're not in an environment where you have to practice them, then you might not ever use those strategies, or you might, but you might not do it as best you could, or as best you can, or as best you could have if you actually practiced them and honed them and got feedback on them. Because communication is something we do every day. It's the most important, one of the most important skills that we have to hone. So they affect our personal lives, our professional lives, and they're a way to help us level up as a human being too. So this is a great opportunity for you to actually practice. Practice makes progress. Yes, practice makes perfect. Whatever perfect is to you, it does that too, because you work on something. So you can participate with one of the paid plans that we have. So we've got the plan for people who really love having lots of video call workshops, which we do in our executive communication lab. And that's geared for people who, they really want that professional polish in addition to the social fluency, and want to work on, their confidence in business communications and also social lives, in their communication for every day as well. So it's those two things, and you get all those video calls. And then you can also join the Exploring Academy plan. You get the community, the web courses, challenges, all of this stuff here, learning materials, worksheets, quizzes, and quests, things like that, which you also get in Executive Communication Lab. So you could choose one of those if you'd like to join us. And the way you do that is, if you are part of the free webinar plan in our community, you check out this nav bar here. You will find daily practice. This is where I'm going to host the meeting next week on the 21st. So to practice it, you'll get a Google Meet link to once you RSVP, you'll be able to join the video call and be on camera. And I really encourage you. It's so much fun. Don't be discouraged or daunted by it. Like, oh, I have to, be perfect in order to participate. Absolutely not. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. And that's the fun of it, right? We all have our quirks. We all have our idiosyncrasies. We have fun. We're human, because that's the point. You don't want to talk like a robot. What's the fun in that? So join through daily practice. Oh, Elisa, that's awesome. You are very welcome. I'm so glad that you participated, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. You said you'll absolutely do it. Well, that's very exciting. I can't wait to meet you face to face in our virtual world. Or you can purchase a plan if you are not part of the Exploring Academy free webinar. And you can do that by just going to academy.exploring.co. Super duper easy. And you can choose whatever plan you'd like. We've got a 7-day free trial, which is awesome. And you can, as soon as you walk in, you get the full member experience. You go in, you can do the web courses, you can do the quests, you can do quizzes, you can watch previous workshop replays, which people really like to do because there's so many gold nuggets in there, like treasure. It's pure treasure. So I just want to go through these because our members are amazing. So Mireya says, best investment. You won't regret it. Love it. I think Mireya is in this call, so that's kind of fun. It's amazing. Helder had to give a presentation at work, and so he used the community strategies that we shared and that I taught him, and he said everybody loved it. So he not only uses the strategies that for these, for communication in English, he uses them in his L1 too. That's the beauty of this. Because we're teaching communication and we're doing it in English, yes, not only does your English and communication get better in English, but it also gets better in whatever language you speak outside of the office or home or whatever. So if you are a native French speaker as your L1, you can use these strategies in French. And guess what? They're going to be super effective too for your communication. So whatever language you speak, they will also be, relevant. That's so cool. Mariva says that it's very different. What we do, Explore Learning Academy, is very different from any training she's ever attended. And she loves the small groups. She feels confident and comfortable speaking in those small group settings. And we keep the group small so that you get to, practice and everyone has time to talk, which is important. And she has increased her self-confidence in different social settings and situations in English. And she feels like everyone is encouraged to speak and everyone's taken care of. And she is very happy. That's great to hear. Edwin, he says the style of interaction is cutting edge, incorporating innovative language elements of teaching a second language and communication. And he feels his speaking skills have improved in his daily interactions. He's surpassed typical language barriers, which is amazing, right? And every day in live discussions, he learns new words, expressions, and discussion items that he uses afterwards in real life settings. And Edwin has told me that he uses these not only in English, but also in his L1, which is Spanish. So that's awesome. Raquel says she doesn't get to use English in her daily life. So she came here to have the opportunity to exchange with people from all over the world, learn about different opinions, cultures, customs, current affairs. She loves that we're in small groups to be active in discussions and lose that fear of public speaking, right? That social anxiety that so many people have, native speakers too. I can't tell you how many native speakers tell me that they have communication apprehension, stage fright, social anxiety, right? This has nothing to do with, maybe English is your second language, maybe not. So it's about doing the things that I teach in this community and practicing them. That's how we get over this kind of social anxiety and increase our confidence levels. So that's that. Seval says that, everyone's so sweet and smiling. She never gets bored. She doesn't know how time flies in the workshops. And she's had the opportunity to improve her communication skills and language skills. And she loves that she gets that corrective feedback, right? She gets to see and correct her mistakes with frequent community meetings. That's something that we definitely all need, right? We need to know if we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And then if we're doing the wrong thing, we need to correct course and get on the right path. Ishika says that her goals are to become more socially savvy and build emotional social intelligence with people. Ashika is a native English speaker, and she's here to improve her communication skills. She's in the right place. And she feels like her skills have already improved. She sees the shifts happening, and she's so happy to feel that liberation of being able to be confident in what she says and does. She gets to, say things without overthinking, right? Without ruminating too much, as long as she puts it across with integrity and grace, which is something that our academy integrates in its modules. So in our web courses, in our sessions, how to incorporate that. And then we've got Sira, who is also on this call. So exciting. I love what she says here, right? So throughout most of my life, I've battled social anxiety. Joining the Explore Learning Academy has empowered me to overcome my fears and shut down my BS. Yeah. Each baby step in this supportive environment has been transformative. boosting my confidence in both personal and professional interactions. Love it. So, so very well put. That's what we do here, right? We get you equipped and ready to put your best foot forward in those personal settings and those professional settings, because guess what? We need both, right? We need both and everything in between, which we covered. So I hope that you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you for your time. Lots of things to think about here, lots of things to practice. If you do want to practice, the invitation is extended to you. I welcome you with open arms. And just as a little reminder, last week we talked about conversation starters. We are having that workshop, practicing conversation starters, tomorrow. And that's going to be at 12 noon too. So here's what you do. If you do join the community and you do your free trial, you'll be able to participate in that. So upgrade your membership, choose whatever plan makes sense for you, the $10 plan, the $50 plan, whatever you think. Whatever you go with, I guarantee you will get lots of value, more than you probably expected. And it's great. It's so much fun. We have an amazing time. So I hope to see you. I hope to virtually meet you. And you can practice conversation starters tomorrow. And then we will do conversation enders next week. So we'll practice that. And then in our executive communication plan on Wednesday, we are doing an impromptu speaking workshop. So on Wednesday, we're going to practice how to speak and think on your feet. So when somebody asks you something, how do you respond impromptu, like without planning what you were going to say with that? So how do you think on your feet and then speak on your feet, which is something that's very difficult. But with the strategies that I'm going to provide and have provided, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier. So I hope to see you at those events. You know where to find me. And thank you again. This was amazing. I'm so happy that you were here, taking the time to invest in yourself and your communication skills. And I will see you soon. Let me know what you think. You can engage in the community afterwards. Go into the group chat, share something. And I really look forward to seeing you in our live video call workshops. Okay? And I'll see you really soon. A lot of people are typing. I don't want to close the chat because I see a lot of people typing, but I know time is up, so we should all go on and carry on. Have a wonderful day, all of you, and I will see you very soon. All right, take care. Bye.